Hayes stood in the center of the training arena with her hands at her sides. Around her, thousands of alien warriors and cadets watched from the observation platforms. The air was cold and dry on Station Meridian. Her uniform was clean and pressed, but it made her look small compared to the massive creatures surrounding her. Instructor stepped forward. He was 7 feet tall with scales that shimmered green and gold in the light. His eyes were sharp and focused like a predator. He had commanded the academy for 200 years and had trained warriors from 50 different species. Held up a wooden stick. It was simple, brown, rough, maybe 3 feet long and as thick as wrist. There were splinters on one end. It looked like something a child would find in a forest on Earth. "This is your weapon," said. His voice was deep and made the air vibrate. The crowd made sounds. Some species clicked their tongues, others hissed. A few actually laughed. The cadet named threw his head back and made a loud barking noise that meant amusement in his species' language. Took the stick, her fingers wrapped around the wood, and she felt the grain beneath her skin. She did not look up or show her face to the crowd. She did not protest or argue. "You are human," continued. "Your species has never fought in the galactic wars. You have no plasma weapons. You have no energy shields. You have no biological armor. You are weak by galactic standards." He turned to face the other cadets. They stood in neat lines. A named held his plasma rifle with confidence. The Venetian next to him controlled a plasma whip that glowed blue and hissed softly. They had curved blades that cut through steel. They had their natural exoskeletons and claws. "Tomorrow at dawn, the first-year cadets will compete," announced. "The human will fight with her wooden stick. Everyone else will fight with proper weapons. We will see if humans belong in this academy at all." Looked at the wooden stick in her hands. It was rough. It was basic. It was nothing like the weapons the other cadets carried. But she did not drop it. She did not ask for something better. That night returned to her small quarters on the academy station. The room had a single bed, a desk, and a window that showed the vast darkness of space. She placed the wooden stick on her desk and sat on the bed. She thought about Earth. She thought about her grandmother who had told her stories. Stories about warriors in ancient times who had no guns or lasers. They had sticks and swords and shields. They had fought enemies that seemed impossible to defeat. Her grandmother had said that humans always found a way to survive. Picked up the stick again. She held it like a teacher had shown her in old training videos. She stood up and moved through the patterns. She learned how to grip it, where to hold it for balance, how to swing it, how to block, how to move fast with it. She did not sleep that night. She trained with the stick until her hands hurt, until her arms burned, until her feet were sore. She watched old videos of Earth martial arts. She studied how people had moved in the days before technology. She learned about warriors who had trained for years to master a single weapon. The wooden stick became something different to her. It was not just a piece of wood anymore. It was a tool. It was a weapon. It was proof that her instructors believed she would fail, and failure was not acceptable. As morning light began to enter her window, sat on the floor and meditated like her grandmother had taught her. She calmed her mind. She pushed away fear. She thought about every advantage she had. Humans were fast. Humans were flexible. Humans could think in new ways. Humans did not give up. She held the wooden stick in both hands and stood. Her legs were tired but steady. Her arms were sore but ready. Her mind was clear. The academy announcement system chimed. Cadets were to report to the training arena in 1 hour. Put on her uniform, she looked at herself in the small mirror on her wall. Her brown eyes stared back at her. She saw confidence there. She saw determination. She picked up the wooden stick and headed toward the door. When she arrived at the arena, thousands of observers had already gathered. The platforms were full. Creatures of every shape and size filled the stands. Some had come because they wanted to watch her fail. Some had come because they had never seen a human fight. Some had come because they thought it would be entertaining. Stood at the center of the arena. Around him stood the other first-year cadets. Each one was armed with advanced weapons. Each one looked strong and confident and ready. "The tournament will begin," announced. "The human is first." An older named stepped forward. He carried a plasma rifle that glowed red with energy. He looked at with contempt. To him, she was a joke. He had fought in 3 battles before coming to the academy. He had killed enemies. He had proven himself. Walked to the opposite side of the arena from she held her wooden stick steady. She watched him. She studied how he stood, how he breathed, how his eyes moved. The referee, with 6 arms, raised 1 arm. "Begin," the referee said. Raised his plasma rifle and fired, moved like water flowing around rocks. She did not run in straight lines. She did not run away from, instead, she moved in angles. She moved in ways that were hard to predict. Each plasma bolt from the warrior's rifle passed through empty space where had been a moment before. His eyes grew wider. His confidence began to crack. He was a trained warrior. He had killed enemies. But this human girl was moving too fast. His plasma rifle was one of the best weapons in the galaxy, yet it could not hit a target that moved with such strange patterns. He fired more bursts in rapid succession. The arena floor burned where the bolts hit. Circles of melted metal appeared on the ground, but was not on the ground anymore. She was rolling. She was jumping. She was sliding between the fire. And she was moving toward him. Realized too late that had not been running away. She had been running toward him using a path that was hard to see. She was closing the distance between them. His rifle was built for long-range combat. It was not built for close fighting. Reached him in seconds, tried to swing the rifle like a club, but had already moved inside his reach. She was too fast. She was too close. She swept the wooden stick low and hard toward his legs. Stumbled, his feet came out from under him. The massive warrior crashed to the ground like a falling tree. His armor clattered as he hit the metal floor. Did not strike him while he was down. Instead, she placed the tip of her wooden stick against his chest. It was a symbol. It meant she could kill him, but she chose not to. The referee raised 1 arm. "The human wins," they announced. The crowd made sounds of shock. The observation platform hissed. Some creatures looked angry, some looked surprised. A few actually nodded with respect. Lay on the ground, breathing hard. He looked at with rage in his eyes. He had been defeated by a human with a wooden stick. The shame would follow him for a long time. Helped him stand. He pulled his arm away from her, but the observers had seen her reach out. They had seen mercy in that action. Watched from the center of the arena. His expression did not change, but his eyes studied more carefully now. She was not lucky. This was skill. The next cadet stepped forward. His name was, and he was a warrior, were built for combat. Their bodies were dense and heavy. Their exoskeletons were like armor, stood 8 feet tall and had muscles that rippled beneath his outer skin. He carried an energy sword that crackled with blue electricity. The crowd believed would defeat the human easily. He was stronger. He was faster than most species. He had armor that could stop bullets. But had learned something from fighting. She had learned that armor had gaps. She had learned that power was sometimes too much. She had learned that a warrior who relied on strength alone could be beaten by someone who relied on speed and thought. Charged at her without waiting for the referee's signal. The believed in offense. He believed in power. He swung his energy sword in a huge arc designed to cut in half. She rolled under the blade. The electricity from the sword crackled past her head and burned the air. The heat was intense, but she was already moving. She came up behind and ran toward his right side where his armor had a thin section between his ribs and his hip. Spun with surprising speed for his size, but was faster. She had already changed direction. She moved to his left instead. She was learning his patterns. She was seeing how his armor moved. She was finding the weak points. Swung again, this time did not dodge. Instead, she blocked with her wooden stick held horizontal across her body. The energy sword hit the wood and the impact sent pain through her arms. But the wooden stick did not break. It held. The energy from the blade spread out along the length of the stick instead of cutting through it. Was surprised by this. He did not expect wood to survive the contact with his energy sword. He hesitated for just a moment. That moment was all needed. She spun the stick and struck at the joint in his left arm. The blow was precise and hard. His grip on his energy sword loosened. He stumbled backward. His armor gave him protection, but it did not give him speed. Was faster. She was always faster. She struck his other arm. She struck his legs. She did not go for killing blows. She went for the places where armor was thinnest, where his joints had to move, where his body could not be protected and still function. Fell to one knee. His breathing was hard and fast. He was exhausted, stood before him with her stick ready, but she did not strike the finishing blow. She waited. Raised his hand in surrender. He could not move fast enough to block her strikes anymore. He could not win this fight. He knew it. Everyone knew it. The referee announced the human's victory. 3 matches had been scheduled for the first day, had won 2. The third opponent was a Venetian named X. Venetians were not as strong as, they were not as fast as, but they were intelligent. They were tactical. They planned their moves carefully. X held a plasma whip. The weapon crackled with energy and moved like it was alive. A plasma whip required control and skill. It was not a weapon for crude power. It was a weapon for someone who understood strategy. X snapped the plasma whip forward. The weapon moved through the air like a striking snake. It was fast and unpredictable. The energy at the tip could burn through flesh in an instant. Jumped backward. The whip passed beneath her feet and burned a line across the arena floor. The metal turned black and cracked from the heat. X was different from the other warriors had faced. Had been strong but simple, had been powerful but slow. X was careful, he did not rush, he did not overcommit, he studied as they fought. The Venetian whipped again. This time the weapon came from a different angle, could not simply roll or jump. The plasma whip had range that the wooden stick did not have. She was being pushed back toward the edge of the arena. She realized she could not win by moving closer to him. She had to understand the weapon. She had to see how it worked. She had to find the pattern that X was using. The whip came again, and again. Each strike was different, but there was something was beginning to see. The Venetian had to control the whip with small movements of his arm and wrist. He had to feel the weapon. He had to adjust his grip based on how the energy moved through the device. That meant the whip had limitations. It was not like a plasma rifle that could shoot instantly in any direction. It had to follow patterns. The energy had to flow along the length of the whip. There were moments when the control was weakest. Began to block instead of dodge. She held her wooden stick up to meet the whip. The impact was violent. Heat and pain shot through her arms, but she did not lower the stick. She kept blocking. X realized what was happening, was getting information with each block. She was learning how the whip moved. She was understanding its rhythm. The Venetian tried to change his strategy. He began to attack faster. He tried to overwhelm her with speed and different angles, but's mind was fast. She was adapting. She was learning. Then she saw it. A moment of vulnerability. When X pulled the whip back to strike again, there was a split second when the energy weakened, when the control wavered. It was only there for a heartbeat, but it was there. Moved forward quickly. She closed the distance while the whip was being pulled back. X tried to snap the whip at her again, but he was too slow. Raised her wooden stick and struck the control device on the Venetian's wrist. The plasma whip lost power. The energy blinked out. The weapon became useless, just a length of burnt metal. X stepped back. He looked at his damaged weapon and then he bowed his head slightly. The crowd was silent. A human cadet had defeated 3 warriors in a single day. It was not possible, but it had happened. Raised his hand to stop the cheering that was beginning to start. The tournaments will continue tomorrow, the commander announced. More cadets will face the human. We will see if this was skill or fortune. That night could barely move. Her arms were bruised. Her legs were sore. Her hands had blisters from holding the wooden stick. But she felt alive in a way she had never felt before. She had done something no one believed she could do. The next day brought more fights. 4 different cadets challenged. Some were fast, some were strong. Some were clever, but each one had become dependent on their weapon or their natural abilities. Each one had a pattern. A named all used his 6 arms and natural claws, but his movements were too predictable. Learned his rhythm and struck the joints in his legs until he could not move. A named used his natural electrical charge, but the electricity needed distance to work well. Moved close to him where the electricity could not hurt her as much. She was willing to take pain if it meant winning. A named X was intelligent and tried to use strategy like X had, but was learning strategy from every fight. She was becoming faster and smarter with each match. By the 4th day, 6 cadets had fallen to the human with the wooden stick. The academy was talking about nothing else. Some warriors were angry that a human was defeating them. Some were beginning to respect her. A few were trying to understand how she was doing it. Watched from the observation platform, this shame had become something different. He had watched defeat 5 other warriors since he had lost to her. He was starting to understand that he had lost to someone special, not just someone lucky. Even came to watch the later matches. Sat in the front row and studied every move made. He was trying to understand how a wooden stick could defeat energy swords and plasma rifles. On the evening of the 4th day, an announcement came. The final match would be tomorrow at dawn, and the final opponent would not be another cadet. It would be instructor himself. The entire academy knew what this meant, had not fought in actual combat for 50 years, but he was still one of the most skilled warriors in the galaxy. He had trained 1,000 warriors. He had killed thousands of enemies. He had never lost a match. Stood alone in her quarters and held the wooden stick. The wood was now. Pieces of it had been burned away. It had splinters. It had cracks, but it had not broken. It had survived every match. She thought about what would happen tomorrow. She thought about if the arena was packed. Every observation platform was filled. Species from 30 different worlds had come to watch the final match. The instructor against the human cadet. The warrior with 200 years of experience against the young girl with a wooden stick. Stepped into the arena wearing his traditional armor. It was not the bulky armor of a regular soldier. It was ceremonial armor, light and flexible. He carried a single energy sword. The blade was plain but elegant. It had killed enemies from 100 worlds. The commander looked at as she entered the arena. His expression was empty. There was no anger. There was no contempt. There was only the cold focus of a warrior who was about to do what he did best. Walked to her position. She held the wooden stick. She breathed deeply. Her body was tired from 4 days of fighting, but her mind was clear. The crowd grew silent. Not even a single creature made a sound. They were waiting for the beginning of something that felt important. A test that would prove something about the galaxy itself. The referee raised an arm. "Begin," they said. Moved. He was fast, faster than any cadet had fought. His energy sword came at her like a green blur. She raised her wooden stick to block, and the impact felt like being hit by a falling stone. The sword was stopped, but the force behind it pushed backward. Her feet slid across the arena floor. Pressed forward, he attacked again and again. Each strike was more powerful than the last. His technique was perfect. His movements were efficient. He did not waste any motion. Every attack had the goal of killing or disabling. Could only block and dodge. She had no time to attack. She had no time to think, moved like a warrior who had done this for 200 years. He understood every way a body could move. He understood the limits of human speed. He was pushing her toward the edge of the arena. His arms burned. Her shoulders screamed with pain. Every block hurt. But she did not let the stick drop. She did not stop defending. Cut at her left side and barely raised her stick in time. The energy sword hit the wood and sent sparks flying. Part of the wooden stick's edge burned away, but the stick held. It did not break. She realized something in that moment. The wooden stick was not meant to win through strength. It was meant to survive. It was meant to absorb the attacks and keep existing. Changed her approach. Instead of trying to block with force, she learned to block by redirecting. She moved the stick at angles that sent energy sword past her body instead of stopping it directly. She began to flow like water instead of fighting like stone. His attacks came and she bent around them. His sword passed close enough to burn her uniform, but it did not cut her. She was learning to move with his strikes instead of against them. The commander's expression changed. For the first time, there was no confidence there. There was respect. And something else, curiosity. He was facing a warrior who was thinking instead of just reacting. The match went on for a long time. Hours seemed to pass, though it had only been minutes. Was learning faster now. She was understanding how moved. She was seeing his patterns. She was predicting where his next strike would come. But was tiring. Humans had a strange advantage in combat. They could keep fighting even when they were exhausted. They could push through pain. They could find strength in the moment when they should have failed. Made a strike that was slightly slower than his others. It was only a small difference, a fraction of a second, but it was enough. Moved inside his reach. She was close to his body now. She could not use the full length of the stick, but she did not need to. She struck at his arm with all the strength she had left. His grip loosened. The energy sword fell from his hand. For a moment he stood without a weapon. He was open. He was vulnerable, could end this now. She could strike and defeat the greatest warrior in the academy. Instead, she placed the tip of her wooden stick against his chest. It was the same gesture she had made with. It said, "I could kill you, but I choose not to." Looked at the wooden stick. He looked at, then he raised his hand in surrender. The arena exploded with sound. Every creature in every observation platform was making noise. Some were cheering. Some were shouting. Some were clicking or hissing or making their own species sounds of celebration. got down on one knee in front of. It was a gesture of respect that crossed all species and all worlds. He bowed his head. "You have won," he said so only she could hear. "But more than that, you have understood. The weapon does not make the warrior makes the weapon." He stood up and raised his voice so the entire crowd could hear. "I have trained for 200 years, announced. "I have fought in wars across the galaxy. I have defeated warriors from every species and every world. I have never been beaten by tactics or power or speed. But I have been beaten by something I have not seen in a long time. I have been beaten by will, by the refusal to accept that defeat is possible, by adaptation and learning and the human quality of refusing to break even when breaking seems like the only choice." He pointed at, "This human cadet is the superior warrior, not because of strength, not stood on the observation deck of the Academy station late that night. The wooden stick was in her hands. She could see the scratches and burns and damage from the fights, but it had not broken. It was still solid, still whole, still ready." Behind her, footsteps approached. She did not turn around. She knew who it was, came and stood next to her. The warrior was quiet for a long moment. "I wanted to understand how you did it," said finally. His voice was softer than before. The rage and contempt were gone. "I have watched you fight every cadet and every combat since that first day. I have tried to see the pattern." Turned to look at him. "There is no single pattern," she said. "That is what I learned. Every opponent is different. Every weapon is different. The pattern is not the same in each fight. The pattern is to see what each opponent believes and find the flaw in that belief." "You made us believe we would lose," another voice said, stepped out of the shadows. The warrior was large and powerful, but he moved quietly now. "When I faced you, I believed my armor would protect me. I believed my strength would be enough. But you showed me that armor has gaps, that strength without speed is useless." Nodded. She did not need to speak. They were understanding something that was important to humans but foreign to most galactic warriors. A third figure approached. It was X, the Venetian. He held something in his hand, a small data pad. "I have been studying Earth martial history since our match," X said. "Your species has warriors that trained for decades with simple weapons. Your ancestors faced enemies with superior numbers and superior technology, and they survived. How?" "We had to," said simply. "On Earth, we never had the most advanced weapons. We survived by thinking, by adapting, by refusing to accept that we were weaker. We learned that a weapon is only as good as the warrior who understands how to use it. And more than that, a warrior is only as good as their willingness to keep fighting when everything says they should stop." Moved closer to the window, he looked out at the stars. "The instructors have asked me to lead a new training program," he said. "Earth warfare studies. We will teach other warriors how your species thinks about combat, how you approach battles you should not be able to win, how you find victory when the odds are impossible." Stepped beside him at the window. "I have been reading about human warriors who fought with wooden sticks," the said. "There were warriors in ancient times on your world who trained their entire lives with a single weapon. They understood the stick better than any creature has understood any weapon. Is this why you could use this stick against energy swords?" "Partly," admitted. "But more than that, the stick is honest. It shows you what you need to learn. It does not hide behind power or technology. When I hit something with the stick, I feel it. I learn from it. The stick teaches me." X joined them at the window. The three warriors who had been defeated by now stood with her and looked at the stars together. "Will you teach the other cadets?" the Venetian asked. "Will you show them what you have shown us?" Thought about this? She thought about her grandmother's stories. She thought about warriors on Earth who had trained the next generation. She thought about the human way of passing knowledge from one person to another. "Yes," she said, "I will teach them, but they have to understand that I am not teaching them to use a wooden stick. I am teaching them to think like humans, to adapt, to survive, to never believe that they are beaten until they actually fall." That night came to her quarters. The commander entered with the formality that was his way. He carried something in his hands, an ancient energy sword. It was different from the one he had used in their match. This one was older. The handle showed marks from being held by hands for centuries. "This was given to me when I became an instructor," said. "It was given to me by a warrior who trained 1,000 cadets before me. I am giving it to you now." Took the sword. It was lighter than she expected. It felt alive in her hands. "I do not want you to use this as your weapon," continued. "I want you to keep it as a reminder. You have shown us that humans are not weak. You have shown us that a warrior can defeat any weapon if they understand the warrior holding that weapon. You have shown us that the mind and the spirit are weapons that no technology can match." He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "The human girl who came to this academy with a wooden stick has taught me something that 50 warriors in 200 years could not teach me," said. "She taught me that I was wrong about humanity. That was a gift worth more than any weapon in the galaxy." Over the next weeks, cadets began to study with. At first, it was just the ones who had been defeated by her. But soon, others came. Warriors from many species wanted to understand what she had understood. She taught them that a weapon was only as good as the warrior. She taught them to adapt. She taught them to think instead of just react. She taught them to look for patterns and then to break those patterns. She taught them that the most dangerous warrior was not the one with the best weapon, but the one who refused to accept defeat. On the day of the next tournament, the arena was different. Warriors fought with the simple wooden stick. Some were fast, some were strong, some were clever, but all of them fought with the understanding that they had to think to survive. A cadet defeated a who carried advanced weapons. A warrior beat a Venetian with technological superiority. A young stood up against a fighter with natural biological armor and won through adaptation and intelligence. The academy was changing. The teachers were changing, the warriors were changing. Humans were no longer seen as weak. The story of the human cadet with the wooden stick spread across the galaxy. Other species began to study human warfare. Other planets began to train warriors in the human way. Stood one evening in the same spot where she had stood after her first victory. She held the wooden stick. It was even more now, even more damaged, but it was still strong, still capable, still whole. She looked at the ancient energy sword that had given her, and she smiled. She had not needed an advanced weapon to prove her worth. She had needed only to be human, to think, to adapt, to never accept failure. The galaxy had given a human cadet a wooden stick as a joke. The human had turned that wooden stick into a symbol of everything the galaxy had forgotten about true warfare and true strength. And in learning from her, the galaxy was remembering. They turned to the crowd. "The human belongs in this academy. More than that, humans belong in every academy. They belong in every army. They belong anywhere that warriors gather to test themselves, because they teach us something we have forgotten about combat and about survival." Stood in the center of the arena. She held the wooden stick in one hand, her other arm hung at her side. She was bleeding from small cuts. She was bruised. She was exhausted, but she was standing. And she was the victor, acing someone who had 200 years of combat experience. She thought about a warrior who had perfected every technique. She thought about an opponent who could probably move faster than she could follow with her eyes. But she did not feel fear. She felt something else. She felt purpose. She placed the wooden stick on her bed and closed her eyes. She meditated like her grandmother had taught her. She calmed her mind. She prepared her body, she herself, for the most important fight of her life. Tomorrow, she would face instructor. Tomorrow, she would discover if her skill was enough to defeat the greatest warrior in the academy. Tomorrow, she would find out if a human with a wooden stick could stand against 200 years of experience and power. The crowd grew quiet. They sensed that this match would be different from the first two. This would not be about speed or power. This would be about intelligence. And X faced each other across the arena. The Venetian began to move the whip in patterns. The energy crackled. The whip hissed. This would be a true test of the wooden stick against a weapon that was controlled by a warrior who understood the meaning of strategy and skill. The red energy bolt shot across the arena toward. It would burn through skin and muscle and bone. It would stop her heart. It would end her before she could take 2 more steps. But was already moving. She had studied the speed of plasma bolts in her room that night. She knew how fast they moved. She rolled to the left, and the bolt passed close enough that she felt heat on her face. Fired again and again, again. Each time moved, not with technology, not with armor, just with her body and her mind and her will to survive.